Hey folks! So part of my job as a school librarian is to go through the collection periodically and do this very official sounding thing called weeding. And it's pretty much just what it sounds like. It's taking out old materials that no longer serve a purpose and make room for new ones. There can be any number of reasons a material may be weeded, but the biggest two in my career have been if the information in a nonfiction book is no longer accurate, or in the case of fiction or nonfiction, the book just isn't circulating anymore. Maybe the book isn't moving because that trend has died down. I'm looking at you, 2005 YA Twilight era vampire romances. Maybe it's book 12 in a series, and let's face it, that's a lot of commitment. Or maybe, just maybe, people aren't picking up the book because they don't like the cover. I know, we use that phrase in so many aspects of life. Don't judge a book by its cover, but we do. It's just a fact. And especially if you're investing in a book, be it in the role of a librarian or in your personal library, it's something that has to be considered. For example, I have this one book in my library that I know students would love. It is something that, given their past reading experiences and the types of things they ask for, this would be something they should be lining up for. But the cover just wasn't selling them. It's about a boy who's basically a magnet for getting him and his friends in trouble, and he usually finds a way to smooth things over until one night when he sees a midnight murder, and now he needs to figure out how to outsmart a criminal. Well, this is the only copy of that book that my library had until a few weeks ago. A little dated looking, right? My school is 99 years old, and this copy of Tom Sawyer has been there since 1938. Is it still completely readable? Yeah, it's in remarkably good shape considering that it would have qualified for Social Security about 18 years ago. And here's a fun fact for you. The hardcover cost $2.39 back in the day. However, the middle schoolers of 2023 are not picking it up, even though I know they would like it. And so I made the executive decision with the budget that I have that it was time to purchase a new copy. And so I went with this. It is bright, it is cheery, it still has the iconic white picket fence that once you read the story, you know what that's referring to. It's minimalist, it has a fun font, and when this book is facing out on bookshelves or the picture of this cover shows up on our online catalog, it is something that the kids actually pick up and look at and click on and explore. So was it worth the $5.99 for a new copy? I'd say so. And this is not just a me being weird thing, and it doesn't just apply to books that are considered classics either. This is something that publishers are literally thinking about all the time. After all, their goal is to sell books and make a profit. And if a book is sold enough to warrant a paperback run, but they think that sales could be better, sometimes they'll try a new cover to try to attract a different type of reader. The fact that paperbacks are usually at a lower price point also attracts a different audience. And again, my mission is the fact that reading shouldn't have to break the bank for anyone. So let's consider Veronica Roth's novel, Chosen Ones. This is the original hardcover in the US and the international cover. And it is pretty minimal, but it also has a dash of whimsical, which makes sense. It's more of a fantasy book than some of her previous ones. But maybe the fantasy vibe is what made people shy away from it, because when it was time for the US paperback, her publisher went with this. Definitely says more science fiction and the dystopia you know her for, which is also something that makes sense because that also fits a different vibe of the book. At the end of the day, like anything to do with art, it's a matter of personal preference. I tend to think more about covers when I have my librarian hat on and am making purchases for work, and I have to work extra hard to sell a book if the cover is something that my students aren't going to respond to. But as for my home library, it kind of depends. When I was at an airport in 2010 and I wanted to reread The Death and Life of Charlie St. Cloud, it did not bother me that this was the movie cover. I wouldn't have picked it ordinarily, but for $7.99, I was able to get over it. However, when one of my favorite authors, V.E. Schwab, announced that her series, A Darker Shade of Magic, is going to be getting a new cover, I immediately went out to the bookstore and bought a copy with the old cover because I like it so much and I want it in my collection. When all is said and done, it's what's on the inside that counts. Unless you have to be counting circulation statistics. Then you really do need to think about this. Until next time, happy reading. Also, can we just talk about when mass market paperbacks were more of a thing and cost less than $10? I could do a whole episode on that. I miss those days.